Hey home bakers, it's Jack here at bakewithjack.co.uk, bringing you your weekly bread making tip every single Thursday. And today I want to talk to you all about bakers' percentages. Let's go. Hey everybody, thanks for hanging out with me here today. If you are brand spanking new, then welcome to my channel, or welcome to the world of Bake with Jack, where I try and help people make amazing bread every single week in these little tidbit videos of help. So without further ado, a baker's percentage is quite a nice thing to know about when you start going off piste and start making your own recipes and experimenting a little bit with flours and moisture content and stuff like that. It's a really helpful thing to know about. It does require a little bit of mathematics, but it will really help you out. So I'm not a baker, right? I've never been a baker. I've never worked in a baker's shop, but what I do have is 4.5 years experience making bread in other people's houses, and I've had a lot of experience in my chefing career making bread and putting it into my work for the last 10 years. Once you start looking at recipes from a baker's percentage point of view, it's really handy to come up with your own recipes. And this is how it works, okay? Everything is compared to the quantity of flour in the recipe. For example, let's start off with a nice easy number, 1,000 grams of flour. Now that's a kilo, by the way. 1,000 grams of flour is a kilo of flour. So that is 100%. Everything else is compared to that 100%. For example, if your recipe said 1,000 grams of flour, 700 grams of water, that means the water is 70%. I know it's not 70% of the recipe as a whole, but it's in relation to the quantity of flour. So with your water at 700 grams and your flour at 1,000 grams, we can say it's got a 70% hydration rate, which is quite a nice thing to say, isn't it? It makes me feel all professional. But that makes it a little bit easy to compare to other recipes. And it's the same with everything else. For example, salt, 1,000 grams of flour, 20 grams of salt is a baker's percentage of 20 out of 1,000 times 100. 102? No. 2%. Yeah, 2% salt, and everything else you'd put up against the flour. I find this really helpful when I'm designing new bread making courses, because I might need a dough to make donuts, for example, that I did recently, and I need 375 grams of flour, and that size dough makes enough donuts for the class without having to make a big massive dough, 75 donuts, and get them all through the deep fryer. In that case, if I need a 375 grams of flour dough, I can find a recipe for a 500 grams of flour dough, work out what the baker's percentage is of moisture, milk, eggs, etc., sugar, everything else, work out what the percentage is, and then scale it down to that 375 flour figure. With all that facts in mind, all those baker's percentages, it leaves you free to scale up a recipe, to scale down a recipe in different proportions, to compare a recipe of Mr. Paul Hollywood to a recipe of Mr. Richard Bertinet, to discover the differences and why Mr. Richards are really wet and really pliable and stretchy in the dough, and Mr. Paul Hollywood's a little bit more accessible for the home baker because there's probably a smaller moisture content, hydration rate. So listen, thank you very much for hanging out with me today. I thought that might be a little bit of something a little bit interesting, a little bit more advanced, but it certainly helps out when you're tackling your own recipes, you're making sourdoughs, or if you want to compare one recipe to another and figure out what went wrong or why it's different or why the dough's more supple and elastic and things like that. It's a little bit helpful, a little bit interesting insight for you. So thank you very much. If this has helped you out, please click the like button if you're on YouTube, or just share it out to your mates and pals. That'd be awesome. I look forward to seeing you next week for another weekly bread making tip. And that's it. Bye-bye.